Begin the second hour, guys, in the same spot we began the first hour, and that's talking about the Cavaliers. Dustin, you mentioned in the first hour that the Cavaliers have one of the worst reputations in the league over the last few years in terms of being a soft team.
Yeah.
Would a win tonight change that reputation at all? What do you say?
I think it would certainly start to change the reputation, and they have to get this win. And to get the win, they have to be physical because Detroit has been dominant the first couple of games at their place. They kind of pushed us around, bullied us, if you will, and that's how they got those first couple of wins. And they were feeling very confident going into Game 3. Thank God we came out in Game 3 and we matched their physicality. In fact, kind of made them go into a little bit of a whimper in Games 3 and 4. And I think the Cavs, if they can carry it here into Game 5, that momentum and physicality, then yeah, maybe the narrative of this team will start to shift, and maybe we'll start to get some love in terms of like, hey, maybe the Cavs can compete with OKC or New York to get to the finals and maybe potentially be competitive for a title.
Zach, what say you?
It's a big one, right?
Yeah.
And the reputation that they have has been earned. But it's more about momentum, and it's more about tonight. So you can lose tonight and still win the series. The numbers say that. But I think for the Cavs, if they really have the momentum, we think they do. They think they figured some things out defensively, both ends really, but I think especially defensively, they carry it over, they win tonight, and then you're talking about looking forward. Then you're talking about coming home and slamming the door, and you're not talking about, well, we can only believe it once we see it, because if they win tonight, that means we finally have seen it.
They can cement their reputation as being soft if they lose again tonight.
Yeah.
They can't change it if they win, because a win alone tonight would not be enough. Now, if ultimately, let's say they get to the finals, lose in 6 to Oklahoma City, play a great series, we're going to look at them differently if you play a hard-fought series and lose to Oklahoma City. And so maybe a win tonight starts the process of them turning around their reputation, but you can't turn it around with one game. But you can start the process. First of all, there was a lot of people after Game 4, I go on live, and people are like, you owe James Harden an apology. You owe Kenneth an apology. No, you don't get apologies for winning your home games.
Right.
All right? And by the way, I'm not giving an apology at all. James Harden played like garbage in the first 2 games, so why should I apologize for that, even if he plays better? Now, if they win tonight, win Game 6, okay, I'm going to give them tons of credit, which they will deserve, and at that point, we could start having a conversation about maybe this team has turned the corner in terms of toughness.
Yeah.
But that could go away again if they get swept by the Knicks or lose to the Knicks in 5. I'm not saying that would happen, but so it's one game and one step at a time. But they could do something tonight that they haven't been able to do with Kenny Atkinson at all.
Yeah.
Win a game that they're an underdog.
Win on the road this playoffs.
Win on the road this playoffs. Go ahead, Mike.
You said something they haven't done with Kenny Atkinson. This is beyond Kenny Atkinson. This goes back to the Jimmy Bickerstaff era, too.
True.
This isn't just new of this current regime. They did technically win Game 3 in Indiana last year.
Right, they won. Well, not technically, they won.
And they won 2 games in
But they've
Miami.
been hideous. They have won. They're what? 1 and...
They're 3. They won 2 games in Miami last year.
I don't care. That series doesn't count.
I agree with you.
Just stop that.
But you can't say it doesn't. They've
No, it doesn't count.
That was not playoff games in 2 years.
That team had no business being in the NBA playoffs. It's a disgrace. It's an embarrassment to the sport. First of all, if they let 10 teams in the playoffs, and the Miami Heat
Orlando
are
just
disgrace.
took Detroit to Game 7.
What's that?
Orlando, who was the 8 seed, just like Miami was last year, took Detroit to 7 games.
You know that's not the same.
I'm not saying it is.
Orlando is a legit basketball team. Miami was not a legit basketball team last year.
I'm just saying you can't take 2 playoff wins.
I'm taking them away. I can do whatever the hell I want. It's my opinion.
It's incorrect, but okay.
The Miami Heat were garbage. Besides the Miami Heat, they've won 1 out of what?
Yeah.
They lost 1 to Indiana last year. Then they're 0, so they're 1 and 6.
It's as simple as this tonight, Bull. We watched the Cavs go to Detroit twice, dig themselves holes. They came back, but they dug themselves a hole they ran out of gas.
Yeah.
And the last time they were in Detroit, Evan Mobley had 1 rebound. Right?
Yeah.
We came back to Cleveland. We saw the very best version on Monday night of Evan Mobley at both ends, but specifically on the defensive end, specifically on the glass, being where he was supposed to be, asserting himself.
Yeah.
He's never going to be Shaq and carry 3 people out of the lane.
Never.
Right? But he blocks shots. He takes up space. He finishes with authority when he finishes well, and they need Evan Mobley to be great tonight. We talked over-unders in the first hour. It doesn't need to be – he doesn't need to have 20 points.
No.
But he needs to have 13, 14, 15 points, several block shots, and does an 8 or 9 rebounds?
Yeah,
I mean, his
maybe,
stat line was-
maybe hit a big 3.
Yeah.
One
is good for him.
His
That'd be
stat line
great.
was amazing last game. He had 5 assists, he had 5 blocks, and 3 steals.
He's actually been a good passer this whole series.
yeah, they need that.
Sure.
But now you got me thinking, man, if they had Shaq on this team instead of Mobley.
I mean,
Which
Shaq's a
which
top 10
version?
player of all time. Mobley's good, but there's levels to this thing.
Right. Look, there's a lot at stake for this franchise.
Yeah.
It's reputation. It's the future.
Yeah.
It's Evan Mobley's future
Jobs.
somewhat in question. Yeah, the coaches, the GM, James Harden's future, Donovan Mitchell. That's what it comes down to. The Cavs need to win this series. We'll get to what happens if they do, but
Right.
they have earned the right to have. They've earned the momentum.
Yeah.
Right. They've shifted. They have not shifted the narrative, but they've shifted the momentum.
Yes,
I think
agreed.
defensively they've stepped up. They've taken better care of the basketball. And tonight, reputation or not, what's happened in the past or not, go out there and execute. Go out and show the proper amount of toughness. Don't dig yourself such an early hole and go win the basketball.
I think you're right, though, Zach. If the Cavs win this series and whatever happens against the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think there's definitely it's in play that the Cavs could run it back with what they've got, and Harden could be back, and whatever the LeBron stuff. We'll get to that at some point.
Yeah.
But in terms of this team, they're not running it back if they lose this series. I mean,
That's right.
James Harden's not going to be a Cap next year.
That's right.
By the way, I'm just going to throw this out
James
there.
Harden has a player option. He will most certainly be back next year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's not turning.
He's got to
nobody-
play. He's not
nobody's
turning
paying
down
him what
40.
he's gonna-
He's not turning
what's
down
his
40
player
million
option?
I thought his
How much?
option. I thought he could get more than his option if he opts out.
How much is his player option?
I believe it's $40 million.
I mean, who's paying him $40 million?
Okay, well, it's more than I thought. Sorry.
No, I didn't
That
know
ruins
that
a good
until
story
the-
like the facts.
It's not about next year. It's about shaping the future, right? It's about
Yeah.
getting Donovan on board because he only has 1 year left, too. And then it's about making decisions. It
Yeah.
hasn't worked.
Right.
They already shifted one of the core 4. They swapped out Garland for Harden.
Yeah.
But it hasn't worked. And so if it doesn't work, if they don't win one of these 2 games in Detroit, and hopefully it's only one because hopefully they go win it tonight.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, this is not working. This has not worked. It's not working. Now there's a lot of hard decisions, and they're all linked together.
I'm spitballing here. This has nothing to do with the game tonight, but I'm going to spitball an idea that we're going to get excited about for a second, and is probably 99% not going to happen. But I'm going to spitball it anyway.
Okay.
We need to think about a UCSS, if the Cavs take care of business, road trip to New York for the games, Cavs Knicks games.
I wonder why you'd like to go to New York.
The Garden.
in.
I went to the Garden in November for the first time. It was just for a St. John's game.
Yeah,
but
right.
The place is awesome.
Who were they playing that
They
day?
were playing Alabama that day.
They didn't play well.
The energy in there was incredible.
It's amazing.
It was my first time, and I can't wait to go back.
Alabama
Now, I
plays
could not
fast.
afford to go to the next game in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well,
Alabama
I'm saying
does-
we'll get press passes.
I don't know if we're getting more than one press pass in MSG.
I can talk to people.
Who are you going to talk to?
Francesa.
Oh,
It might, if anybody can get him.
I mean, that's the GOAT.
Yeah. So I don't know.
That'd
How
be
many
it. Yeah,
you
that
can
sounds
get.
like
I don't know
a
how
blast.
many I can ask him for, but
Does he got tickets?
Mike could go to any time he wants. I don't know if he has tickets. I don't
Tell
know.
him we need
Whatever.
12 tickets.
I don't think he's getting his 12 tickets. But I'm just saying, even if we didn't go to the game every night, just to I don't know. Let's take out that big take the budget.
If you go on one of the ticket sites now, and the Cavs have not clinched anything.
Yeah.
yet,
Oh,
and
it's probably
look,
a fortune.
Yeah, they're already about 10 times face value for some
Yeah.
of the
Yeah,
tickets,
yeah.
potential Knicks series tickets.
Right. All right. I don't know, Mike.
I
Keep
mean,
the ball
I'm in.
rolling on this.
Listen, I could get in. It's you guys we got to figure out.
I know.
I got to play a press pass. In tonight's game,
You
though.
got a permanent playoff press pass?
Yeah.
And Jason does.
Yeah. Not for the finals. Finals is different.
Oh, well,
Finals
that's
are
not the finals. It's
Well,
conference
I'm just
finals.
saying, it's not permanent.
Like going to
It's a
Oklahoma
playoff
City.
press pass.
The hell wants to go there?
In terms of tonight's game, a couple things to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Asar Thompson was awesome in Detroit.
Yeah.
Was horrific
Yeah.
in Cleveland. And in game 4, he got benched.
Yeah.
And in some aspects, it helped Detroit's offense. It also allowed Evan Mobley to guard Tobias Harris and completely negated Tobias Harris in the second half. What J.B. Bickerstaff does with Asar Thompson tonight
Yeah.
is going to dictate a lot of Cleveland's matchups. And if he's not on the court, I think it makes life for Donovan and James significantly easier. As we talked about in the first hour, those two have to get going early. If the Cavs are going to win a game in Detroit, not having Asar hounding them makes that more possible. Tyvus was in the first hour, talked about Sam Merrill being the most important other guy in this game.
I don't know that he said other.
Well,
He
he
said,
said
I think it was
everybody.
the most important
But
guy.
is he the most important other? Do you guys agree with that?
I don't.
Sam?
I don't. I think it's Max Strus. He's so
I agree
good
with that.
defensively, and he hasn't
energy.
shot it well the last 3 games, but we've seen that he can really get hot, and so can Merrill.
Yeah.
But Merrill made 2 the other night, and they were big.
Yeah.
But he also had about 6 more that he missed.
Who's your most important other? So you got Strus.
Dennis Schroeder.
You and I are on the same page on
Dennis
that. Go ahead.
Schroeder.
Yeah.
Mr. Energy, Mr. He'd be a good Piston.
Yeah.
He was a Piston last year, and they said don't come back. That's
Yeah.
why he hates the Pistons.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
But
he is a pest, and I think we need him to be a big time pest for the Pistons tonight and play with that chip on his shoulder that he had. Because in Game 2 he was great.
And I like what they did in Game 4 where they went with that 3-guard lineup with the two.
It's
with
been really good for him.
the big 4 and Schroeder. I like that group, and I thought it worked,
Mike, let me ask you
especially
this,
on
Mike.
offense.
Mike, they mentioned this on the broadcast. You're in these press conferences. They said Kenny admitted to almost putting Schroeder in the starting lineup. Was that like a in-depth discussion? What did he say about that?
They were asked how much thought he gave to not starting Dean to making that 5th, and he said if we decided to make the change, it would have been Dennis.
Yeah.
Who went in? Dennis has been up and down, which
Yeah.
has been the story of Dennis's career. Some really high highs, some really low lows, but the one thing Dennis brings when he plays in this particular matchup is A, gives him another ball handler, so it takes a little bit of the onus on Don and James to set everything up, and 2, when he's in the game, he plays at 1 speed.
Yep.
That's fast.
Yeah.
His slow is fast and his fast is faster. And it pushes the pace, and that's kind of what allowed Donovan in Game 4 to get unlocked in the second half was he got that first shot to fall, and then they started playing faster. When you start playing faster, James and Kenny have talked about this, it forces Detroit to make that one extra rotation defensively. Instead of running your offense, and if they deny the first action and you have 8 seconds left, well, you just go ISO or pick and roll. If you start it with a faster pace, you run that first action. Now there's 12 seconds left. You can still run a secondary action with them to play and make Detroit guard you for longer.
Right.
Possibly get better looks. And Dennis is the one guy on the bench. Max a little bit, but he's not the ball handler Dennis is. That pushes the pace constantly, and that leads to good things for everyone else.
And the other thing I like about Dennis is that he's not scared to confront other guys for not playing good defense or like giving up an easy layup. Like he's yelling at Donovan Mitchell, like, "What are you doing?" And then all of a sudden Donovan's like, "Yeah, okay."
This guy's
and Donovan appreciates that.
Yeah, this guy's been on a lot of teams.
Yes.
He's seen it, right?
Yes.
He's been in these stages. It's a great trade, and it was completely overshadowed.
Yeah.
And just in the discussion of everything. But it's a great trade. I mean, he is a guy like you need 20 minutes out of Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, he pisses the other team off.
Yeah,
which is good.
He has helped steady the ship for sure.
Zach,
I would start him, by the way, Mike, and here's why.
I would too.
The Cavs have gotten off to bad starts on the road. They get off to these bad starts, and I like the idea of, okay, we've been starting the game with Dean Wade. I get it, his defense is excellent, but it's 5-on-4 on the offense, or 4-on-5 on offense.
And we always start off down 18 points.
Right, and let's start a guy who, obviously you can't leave him alone.
No.
You got to defend Schroeder. So I think that
they
gives
have
him
not defended Schroeder at all this series. They have let him shoot whatever he wants.
Yeah, but he's not scared
But
to
he's
shoot.
going to shoot the ball, unlike Dean Wade.
Yeah, he does shoot it, but success rate.
And he can also get to the bucket, guys. Let's not forget that. Like he'll drive to the bucket.
That's where he's best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mike,
he's best
he's going to get guys moving more than Dean Wade is. Even if,
they are very different offensive
Yes.
players. Trying to compare Dean Wade to Dennis Schroeder is like comparing
just
Myles
think-
Garrett to Harold Fannin. Like
I just think
two different players. With
okay,
different
but
roles.
one's clearly better. Actually, comparing Myles Garrett to Harold Fannin is very easy. Myles
Yeah.
Garrett's a much better player.
Yeah.
But they are asked to do totally different things.
Yeah,
I
it's two
understand
different.
that, but it's clear who the better player is.
You
It's
know
like
what's funny? Real
it's
quick.
like saying who's better. The better comparison would be like Tarek Skubal and Aaron Judge. I don't know who's better. One's a pitcher,
There
one's
you
a
go.
hitter.
There you go.
What's funny is in the Schroeder trade,
Yeah,
Schroeder was the afterthought. Like Keon Ellis was the guy they traded for, and
Yeah.
Schroeder was the throw-in to make the money work. And in the playoffs, Keon's been completely taken out of the rotation.
Yeah.
And Schroeder's been maybe their second best guy off the bench through the course of the first 11 games
Yeah.
here.
I'd start. You think there's a chance he starts Schroeder tonight?
They just won 2 games in a row. They're not going to change the
If Schroeder shows up tonight with the blonde patch in his hair tonight,
Oh.
bring it back for Game 5. Start him.
Just tell him not to wear an Angels hat. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're now going to do the draft that I referenced last hour. We're going to draft the most intriguing matchups and see who ends up with the best team. That's coming up next on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.